Welcome to BWI Live. I'm Thomas Frank Carr. We are discussing recruiting today, and as we speak, recruiting reporter Ryan Snyder is doing some journalism, so he'll be joining us in just a moment, hopefully with some fresh deets, because it's a big weekend, and then the biggest weekend coming up. So it's bye week, and of course on bye weeks, Penn State football emphasizes recruiting and of course preparation. So we're going to get into all of that today. What happens with the coaches, where they're going, what's the road schedule like, and then a whiteout preview. Plus, we'll do a little bit of look back, see how the last month of recruiting went. Was it as good as we were saying in the middle of it? Was it as bad as we were fearing starting the month when the whiteout is looming and you've got 3 non-conference games that don't have a ton of juice? How did it all shape out? So that's what we're going to be doing today. But with me to do that, because I am not plugged into recruiting, and I am mostly paying attention to like the argument about Drew Aller, his deep ball where he throws the ball in the middle of the field, outside the field. I've been called both a Drew Aller apologist and, of course, a Drew Aller character assassinator in the last week. So Fitz, I'm already annoyed at the internet this morning. How are you doing?
Oh, the internet's great, isn't it? Yeah, it's like it's the guy said in the chat the other day. He's like, we're going to lose our credentials if we're not critical while going through a 5-minute segment being critical of the offense. Whatever, great. You're going to hear what you want to hear. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. But yeah, we're here to talk recruiting. There's not much to talk about with the team. We had practice on Tuesday night, and there wasn't too much to take away from that. Some guys getting some, I would say, much needed time. You know, if you're a veteran, this kind of stuff we talk about in camp and stuff we talk about in the spring, where you don't see Dennis Sutton taking full reps. You know, that stuff is all managed pretty well. Andrew Nelson and his staff do a really good job of all that. But you've got an opportunity to recruit now if you're Penn State. And like I said, going back to I think last week's show, we talked about it a little bit. Every team on a bye, even if they have a massive top 5 game the week after, is going to go out and recruit on a bye. It's part of the lifeblood of the program. Penn State's really made itself on a lot of these things, and it's really setting up for, hey, by the way, we have a big game next weekend, so I know you're committed to another school. Do you want to come by? That'd be cool. Like, that'd be nice. Yeah. So there's some of that going on right now as well. So Ryan's working the phones right now, doing whiteout stuff, doing coach visit stuff. He's probably quite exhausted from all the work he's been putting through. But yeah, it's a fun time to sort of take on a little bit of everything. So happy Thursday to everyone.
So let's dive into people that are having it worse than Penn State, who is 3-0. Brent Pry out at Virginia Tech, Deshaun Foster out at UCLA, and with the new recruiting rules, the transfer portal window, this now opens up the opportunity for those players on those rosters to transfer. I won't even pretend to understand what the new rules are, Fitz, but I do know, based on everyone's response to this, that now is picking season, going through the roster and picking through guys that you might be interested in. So how are you approaching this? Because I imagine it also has something to do with Penn State's roster and its depth chart scholarship and how its numbers will be working in the future as well. So how are you approaching these particular conversations when it comes to the potential opportunity with a division or conference rival and also a team in Penn State's recruiting footprint that has a lot of crossover?
Yeah, you look at Virginia Tech's situation, and they're 0-3 for a reason. They're not a very good football team. Brent, going back to Justin Fuente, that was just a hole that the next guy was going to have a tough time digging out. And then Brent didn't help himself with losing a lot of close games last year when they had an attempt to maybe turn the corner. Didn't happen, and this is kind of the fallout from that. So you're looking at that roster, and you see a bunch of guys with prior relationships, and I think that's a big thing for Penn State when you talk about the guys that they've brought in through the portal in past years. Even if it wasn't an offer, like you look back to Arnold Ebiketie and Derek Tangelo, and those guys weren't offered prospects before they went to their first respective schools, but they were guys that there was some sort of prior relationship with, whether they visited campus once, whether they talked to a recruiting guy, just like that. That's how Penn State likes to operate. And you take a look at the guys that they brought in since, and Nolan Rucci was obviously had some connections there, but like all over the place, these guys are connected. Virginia Tech is going to be different, or not going to be different. It's going to be probably more more in the face with guys like Keelan Adams that you saw. Penn State had him as a target 2 cycles ago as a wide receiver. Brett Clatterball is a middle linebacker that visited a bunch. Kyle Altuner visited a bunch from good counsel, went to West Virginia, started as a freshman, got hurt. Now he's at Virginia Tech. Actually, Virginia Tech's entire offensive line basically went over from West Virginia. But you've got all these background situations, and it kind of makes it murky because you've got guys, Dante Lovett, for example, a defensive back from Virginia Tech, who are going to reach out to Penn State. Like this, there's no reason they shouldn't. And there's no reason Penn State should turn down calls at this point either. You've got an opportunity to better your roster and evaluate. And I think that's what's going on right now. The entire roster is being evaluated from top to bottom. I don't think they're going to find all that much, to be honest with you. And you have to separate the recruiting aspect of it. You have to separate Keelan Adams 4 stars from the fact that I don't think he's caught a ball this year, or maybe he's got 1 or 2 catches. So like, that's the thing that you have to go with is like, hey, he was a really good prospect at one time. And you know what, maybe he wasn't the guy everybody thought he was. So that's what's going on right now. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of parsing the commit list, which has kind of had holes shot through it. I think one guy that you look at from a Penn State perspective, with Virginia Tech's already decommitted. That's Thomas Wilder, the offensive lineman from Virginia. He came on an official visit. Penn State kind of lukewarm on him, but it gives you a chance to dive back in, look at senior film, see if there's been some development you didn't think that was going to be, and then go from there. So I think that's kind of what you're looking at with Virginia Tech. And hey, Brent Pry's got no reason not to tell James Franklin whether, hey, this guy is actually good, or this guy can't play at Penn State. So like, I think they lean on Brent Pry and they lean on Michael Hazel. They lean on the guys that were at Penn State beforehand to go through that roster and say, this guy's the real deal, or this guy's a gem. Like there might be a guy in that roster that nobody knows about, and which, you know, the odds there are pretty low, but nobody knows about.
But more information, right? And there is that kind of conversation of, you had your recruiting thoughts about the kid in high school. What changed, what developed, what might have been new information. Guys grow, right? Like, just examples of things that might happen. So it is interesting to have that connection to that roster, and then to have that opportunity. I guess I was getting some things ready in the background, so I'm sorry. Keep going.
No, it's fine. Adam Gorney from Rivals wrote about 5 recruits that doomed Brent Pry. And it was really interesting, the overlap. And these were supposedly big wins, you know, for either Justin Fuente or Brent Pry, that could really help him out, whether it be in-state guys, whether it be guys that actually hit, like Mansour Delane from good counsel that Penn State didn't offer. He went to Virginia Tech, had a really good career. Now he's, I believe, starting at LSU. And if you can start in LSU in the secondary, you can probably start most schools in the country in the secondary. And by the way, his brother Fahim is now at Ohio State. So you've got things like that. You've got guys that didn't hit. I know Gabriel Williams was a linebacker from DC who got hurt, and Keelan Adams hasn't really played much at all. And then you go back to Gunnar Givens in 2022, and that was a fun recruitment, in the sense that, like, I said, absolutely not. This kid is not it at all. Like, I saw there was a video that circulated, not online, but like among people that cover this stuff, of him moving at a camp. And it looked, honest to God, it looked like 41-year-old me out there. You don't want that on your offensive line or your defensive line. He wanted to play defensive line. He's a Vandy now. So like, misses like that are perceived big hits at the time and great wins at the time can just kind of go away. And we've seen that at Penn State. We've seen that all over the country. So it's interesting there. I will say, one, circling back around on the commit list, the 2027 commit list has just one guy at Virginia Tech right now. It's 2027 quarterback Ben Musser. He's a pretty good player. Like, I watched him a couple of weeks ago. He's worth taking a look at. I know Penn State's shooting high in 2027. You got, Keegan Croucher's the name that's coming around, but there's also some really good ones coming next weekend. So Ben Musser in 2027, I think, is a very interesting name that has popped up.
How does UCLA, the distance, all those things factor in here? We've spent a lot of time talking about Virginia Tech, and I'm not asking for specific names on the UCLA roster, but just generally, is there anything there for Penn State to kind of plumb the depths or take some shots from that particular roster, which does have Penn State has had some success in California, Southern California, Troy Hune, Darius Dixon. So just curious of your thoughts about how any roster that comes open, like, should should everything be on the table for Penn State, or are some things like maybe not worth the time, maybe not as realistic?
Well, I mean, kind of the opposite of what we said with Virginia Tech, right? You've got established relationships with a lot of those guys, or at least some sort of foot in the door relationship with a bunch of those guys in the East. Then you go out West, and you're lucky if you have there are 105 guys on that roster, maybe 10 of them that you've crossed paths with. So it's kind of changes the math in terms of what's out there. Now, UCLA has gone East a bit in the last couple of years. You look on the commit list, Carter Gooden's at the top of the commit list right now, and that was a Penn State target. And that's a guy Penn State's going to get in for the whiteout next week. I wrote that yesterday.
That's right.
That's really,
a good one.
Sort of looking at what connections you've had in the past. And Gooden is a guy that makes sense for Penn State. He's a really, really big defensive end. He wants to play defensive end. That was kind of a hang up in his recruitment the first time around. He's 6'4", 260. What's nature going to say about that? We'll find out in a couple of years. But you look at what Penn State has on the defensive line right now. They just picked up Tavian Branch. So you got 3 defensive tackles in this class, 3 pretty decent defensive tackles in this class. So it gives you some wiggle room if you say, hey, maybe you will end up as an edge. We'll see what we'll see what happens with Carter Gooden, and they're going to continue to evaluate too. There's no pressure to take a guy like that either. Like you've got an opportunity to go out and see not just guys that are committed elsewhere, guys that you've had on campus for official visits, but you have an opportunity to go out and scout the region for Chaz Coleman, who is today's the 18th. It's the 1-year anniversary of Penn State offering Chaz Coleman.
Hey, happy Chaz Coleman Day.
Yeah, how about that? I didn't even plan that, so we did it.
Well, I think Carter Gooden, perfect conversation here, and I'm not trying to equate the two, but just a thought I had while you were talking about that. Penn State has had a selective spot on the roster for a tweener guy for several years now with Smith Vilbert, and now a guy like Nittany White getting some reps at defensive end, getting some reps at defensive tackle. So it's not completely out of the question. Like, even if he is a big defensive end that plays around 280 and maybe he's got enough to play the run from the outside or however it might work out, like, you can even craft a narrative of, hey, whatever the body type, we have a spot because we're smart enough to know if a good football player has we can find a way to make them work on this roster. So it is an interesting situation with guys like that. And I just, because I liked his film, I thought he had that kind of movement skill for a big body defensive end to be valuable.
Yeah, and if you look at, somebody made this point on the board yesterday, if you look at some of the guys that they've brought in, Amin Vanover, even Kemaju, like the guys that we thought were going to be interior guys that stuck at defensive end. Hey, it's possible. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. It's just I think the odds are usually more with a 260-pound high school senior that they're probably going to move to the interior. So I think we're playing the percentages there. It's what's good managers do.
Want to take a quick break to remind you that this podcast is brought to you by Andy Ludicky at myperfectfranchise.net. Are you ready to leave the corporate rat race for the American dream? What does your American dream look like? Do you want to have hands-off ownership? Do you want to just are you one of those people that I'm a person that needs constant stimulation. If it weren't for the fact that I have no business skills, I'm bad at math, and I'm terrible at organizing, maybe being a business owner would be a good thing for me because there's always something to do. You're always on. And now that sounds exhausting, so maybe I don't want to do that. But if that's you've got the ability, you got the mindset, talk to Andy. 404-973-9901, Andy at myperfectfranchise.net. He's a franchise consultant. So what he does, he's bought into franchises before where you buy a local franchise of a business and then you run that as your own. You've got the structure of what's going on, but you are your own boss. And that's really what this is about, is taking your corporate experience or your experience in a particular field. Maybe it's healthcare, right? Maybe you work in healthcare management where you have the business side of things and you understand how these things work. Maybe you're into construction, or Andy has a dumpster company. He was not in waste management before, but he is now. And so these are the things where if you understand business and you want to schedule your own life and be your own boss, this is your opportunity. So give him a call at 404-973-9901. Or if you want to own a small business in your local community, you can do that as well. And he's got a process that can help you understand the P&L. He can understand the valuations, understand all the aspects of that business, and help you make a smart decision. Because he'll also tell you no. He'll say, nah, that's not a good idea. You probably should not do that. So check out Andy at 404-973-9901, longtime sponsor here on the BWI Live Recruiting Show. Also want to tell you about Ann Lusk and Associates, and I meant to because I was a little busy this morning looking up all these things because all that stuff happening all at once. But as I've said before, I love real estate. If I were to do a thing, it might be even that. But Ann Lusk and Associates, they have experience and connections. The purchase or sale of a home is a major life milestone. I bought one a couple years ago, and oh my goodness, was it a process. There's so much legal paperwork. They put a paperwork in front of you the size of like a history textbook, and you're supposed to know what all that means and what all that does. No, you shouldn't. You should find an expert. And you deserve guidance from experienced professionals like Lusk and Associates, Sotheby International Realty. They're here in Happy Valley. So if you're looking for an investment property, maybe you've got kids that are coming to Penn State and you want to not have to pay for their housing for 4 years, and it's actually a better idea for you to buy a townhome here, yeah, that's something that everybody does. So check them out. Also, if you want to move to the area, or you're moving out of the area, like Ryan Snyder, who joins us now, who moved into the Harrisburg area. Ann Lusk is a legend in Southeast Pennsylvania, and her associates are moving here into State College. So you can check them out at 814-808-7588. I'll put this up here on the screen again for everyone on the YouTube channel. And if you're listening on the podcast, it's luskandassociates.com. You can also just Google Ann Lusk and their website comes up. Lusk and Associates, Sotheby International Realty, where experience meets excellence. Speaking of excellence, welcome Ryan Snyder. How you doing?
Frazzled right now. Hi, how you doing? All over the place at the moment. Busy morning, but yeah, I think we're doing good, man. We are just plugging away at this whiteout list, which is crazy because we're 9 days away, and it is on pace to be absurdly stacked with talent. So I'm trying to do this show and work on some things on the side. So if I didn't hear the question you're going to throw at me at some point, that's random. Just move on and throw it to Sean. Okay.
Sure.
Thanks,
Sure. They're always connected to the show. They're a little bit out of left field, but they're always connected to what we're talking about. Keemon Spell. This is on the rundown. So Keemon Spell didn't make it to
rundown
FIU
today. I haven't even looked at it. Go ahead.
So I'll let you know here live on the show. Keemon Spell was supposed to come to the FIU game. That didn't happen, as we mentioned, because of an ankle injury. He made it back this past weekend. So that's a pretty big deal for Penn State fans. How did it all go? What's your read on him joining the Nittany Lions for that Villanova game? And I believe he's coming back this weekend, right? Like that's maybe a first salvo. I'm sorry, to the whiteout game. In my mind, we're talking about the whiteout. It's already here, but you're right. Sorry, next weekend.
Yeah, I mean, first impression seems it's a good thing he didn't go to Notre Dame, right? I think that's the best way to put it.
I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not.
Why?
Notre Dame lost. Yeah, because Notre Dame lost.
Because they're 0-2.
Bad joke about.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
There we go.
I'm over. I don't know. I need some sleep or something right now. I'm out of it. Let's see if he takes those Alabama visits, and I think Alabama, Florida State were the other ones he had set. Right now it's looking good. I think Penn State's done a good job of kind of weathering the storm a little bit when it comes to him wanting to visit schools. But with what 16 still months to go to sign, I don't want to get too high, too low on that situation. But McKeesport, they do great in Western PA. Obviously, he's a stud of a prospect. I think there's a lot to be excited about, and I just would also just say, long way to go as well. So don't overthink the highs and lows. There will be more to come. It's going to play out probably like Messiah Mickens to some degree, where you're going to have some ups and downs and visits taken elsewhere. Although Messiah, I don't think took visits elsewhere, but he was close to. I kind of just see it similar to that.
Fitz, how have you viewed all of this around Keemon Spell as I think Ryan just pointed and kind of outlined the situation of he's going to draw a lot of interest, but you've been pretty steadfast and I feel good about where Penn State is, and that seems to be holding firm in terms of maybe he's had interest or maybe he's gone other places, but it seems like he's still putting "we are" on all of his tweets. He's still coming to all these games. How have you viewed kind of the roller coaster part of this?
Yeah, a couple things. I've felt pretty decent about that one, probably better than most in that situation in the past. In-state kid, 5-star. Penn State knows the value of getting Keemon Spell beyond the football aspect of things. And with Penn State signing the Adidas deal, I think those two things are not connected. They didn't sign Adidas to get Keemon Spell, but right. I think Penn State's going to have a little bit more of a cachet to work with that side of NIL. So I think that makes it work. And, Pat Kraft knows Keemon Spell. Like, this is a 2027 high school junior. Pat Kraft knows who he is and makes him a priority, just like James Franklin makes him a priority, just like Terry Smith makes him a priority. Kenny Sanders makes him, all the guys in the recruiting office, like, this guy is a priority from the top down. And I think that is not lost on him. And the second part of this is, I think I've said it before in the show, you'd rather have a guy he's going to Notre Dame, he's going to Ohio State, he's going to Texas, he's going to, you'd rather have a guy that wants to go to a bunch of different schools rather than a guy that would just go to, like, say, I'm down to Notre Dame and Penn State. Like, I think that is a different, it's sort of, you're going with a rifle versus a shotgun. Like, with a shotgun, you're trying to hit everything, but you're not going to hit the big target, right? You're going to hit all around it. So you're looking at Keemon Spell as a guy that's trying to experience all of college football versus a guy that says, okay, I'm serious about these schools. I'm going to check out these two schools and then compare and contrast and go with it. So I think that is also a plus for Penn State. And if you look at his travel schedule, who wouldn't want to go to those games? Like, who would not want to go to those games? And by the way, he's 0 for 2 in going to games that aren't at Penn State. So I think that's, helpful in terms of what.
1 for 2.
1 for 2. He made it to Ohio State. Okay, sorry. I was thinking he missed that, but it was the Penn State game that he missed because of the thing. So he's been at Penn State twice. He's been in another school once. So I think they're okay there. Nobody's stopping coming after him. I'll say that. Like, it's going to be a grind. It's going to be something you might get sick about hearing at some point. But I think Penn State's been in a pretty good spot, and they continue to be in a pretty good spot. And it's one of those things where, hey, this kid isn't quite asking for all this stuff. He's not walking around with his hand out or anything, but schools are going to keep coming at him and keep providing him with opportunities. It's just like, okay, I'll take those tickets. I'll take those things. So, and on the flip side, and I don't want to overlook this part, Penn State's doing a really good job recruiting. They were at McKeesport on Monday morning. One of the first stops or the first stop. I'm not sure.
I think it was the first. Yeah, I believe it was the first
stop. So, like, he knows how valued he is. They offered Javian Robinson, his teammate at McKeesport. They've been around and they've made it known to him that he is the guy, and they haven't taken a second running back in 2026. They haven't taken a second running back in 2027. I think they eventually will have to, but you're looking at a situation where everything Penn State is doing is laying it out that he is the ultra priority at this point in time.
Ryan, it also seems like all the teams you would be really worried about have already made a run, gone to the Ohio State game. Notre Dame is interested, obviously, Ja'Juan Snyder being there. Is that also you should feel good that they've weathered this early storm, or are there other teams out there that you would say, oh, okay, so this is kind of a difference maker, whether it's a USC with a bigger bag or whatever it might be? I guess how does
positioning that they just throw big bags at? Am I wrong with that, Sean? I mean, for the most part,
you glitched out there when you were saying the name.
Running back as a position isn't one of those spots where you're going to have a Luke Wafel situation where somebody's going to throw crazy money. I mean, I'm not saying it's not possible, but it's just not. Offensive tackle, quarterback, some receivers, defensive ends, like, they're kind of tend to be the ones that you see that more with. Obviously, Keemon's a special athlete. He's going to get a lot of interest and get paid. I'm sure about that. But as far as what you're saying, T. Frank, I mean, it's not done. Like, they're going to continue pursuing him very hard through probably next June. We'll see. They'll try and get him to take some official visits. So I think it's encouraging that he didn't go to Notre Dame. I think it's also important to note that he did suffer an injury the week before, right? I don't know how much of that played into him not wanting to go out to Notre Dame, but he did kind of miss that game there, and he didn't look too injured on the sideline. You guys were there. I wasn't at the Villanova game, but I just don't know how much that played into it as well. But I do fully agree with Sean from the perspective of Western PA guy. They do incredibly well with those guys. There aren't too many that have gotten away. You can think of like maybe Bradley Gompers, but that was a totally different situation where Penn State came in late. But I think that's all very encouraging. And as Sean said, I mean, keeping a 5-star running back, elite running back, especially after Nick Singleton, okay, Tron Allen will be gone. Like that, it's all very, very important to Penn State, and they're going to put their best foot forward no matter what.
So I want to get into the next thing here, which is our discussion about how things went. Keemon Spell, one of the visitors that came in the first 3 weeks of the season. Ryan, how did you view that first dry run towards the whiteout game in terms of getting quality players on campus during what I think we've argued during the non-conference maybe wasn't the strongest slate ever, and was something that maybe team fans would like to see more sizzle, and that might have attracted more attention. Did it play out that way, or how did you view the first 3 games of the season for Penn State, where they had all that opportunity to bring players on campus?
The Nevada game was great list-wise. I mean, I think we went over that pretty thoroughly. I mean, for a non-conference game, with Texas, Ohio State, 4 or 5 hours away, who they were able to get there was good. It was impressive. There was a lot of talent. I think getting Ryan Jackson on campus last week was also a big plus. I think he's a player that Penn State's really high on, and I think he's a player that Penn State is in a very good position to land at the moment. I wouldn't say it's coming in the absolute near future, but I do think that there's a good chance that Ryan Jackson could be a Nittany Lion here by the end of this year. So keep an eye on that. I think getting him up was big, because also he's coming back for the Oregon game here this week, which is why I probably shouldn't say there's no chance he's going to quit soon, because he's going to be back next week.
Well,
you never know. What's that, Sean?
Maybe,
Yeah, maybe we'll see. But I look, obviously, again, getting Kimon up was good. He's going to be back then, this upcoming week. But when I look at the fact that they have Olu Olubaba coming back up, or was just here for Nevada, now coming back up. Raylon Henry, a guy who is very high on Terry Smith's board, has Penn State top 6. I think right now Penn State's probably about 3rd, 4th on that list, probably behind A&M, Bama, and Ohio State. But they're in the mix more with a St. Francis cornerback, which I know sounds funny because of Amari Polidor, a little different than I would have expected. Kind of coming out of that or learning more about the situation. Mekhi Brown, really good edge rusher up in Connecticut. Isaiah Rogers, really good running back prospect that Penn State's going to be working hard to potentially get back on campus next weekend. So, the talent that they had there for that Nevada game, you're talking about, I think 5, 6 top 150 kind of players, for a game that didn't have a lot of sizzle, a lot of hype. So I think that's really important. Truthfully, FIU and Villanova really didn't bring a whole lot, and we didn't expect that to. I've always expected Nevada to be a big list, obviously the whiteout, and then you kind of have to see where things are at in November with playoffs and stuff like that. That'll have a big impact, on who can get to Indiana and Nebraska.
Makes a lot of sense. So that's a list of what he's been doing over the last month. Of course, BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, the place to go and get the full count of information on recruiting, because Ryan is burning up the internet, phone lines, text messages, WhatsApp, downloads, uploads, everything to get you the information.
I don't have WhatsApp, but okay.
I haven't
nobody needs to know. Nobody needs to know that is, join Blue White Illustrated right now for $1. Get full year of access to The Athletic when you do that, and you can get Ryan's information.
I don't have TikTok. Not a TikTok guy either. Got it. No Snapchat. Just
Instagram DMs.
Twitter. I was just thinking
Twitter.
The other day. So when I started doing this, like Facebook was like prominent, and that's where you first went to this. And actually, I hadn't gone to that yet. And Joseph Barksdale, I don't know if you remember Joseph Barksdale. I think he went to LSU. Friended me on Facebook, and I was like, I had an ethical dilemma. Like, do I friend this kid on Facebook? And I talked to Pat Foley, who I worked for at the time, and he's like, yeah, go ahead, see what happens. And now all of a sudden it's like, if you're not connected with them on social media, you don't have a connection. So it's very funny to see how far this has come in the last 15, 20 years. But I mean, it's crazy to think about, like, the impact that social media has had not only on the recruiting process as a whole, but like these guys making decisions, like, and it's not the guys tweeting at them to come to their school. It's like, how does the response from everyone change the way that I approach this thing? And it's been kind of wild to see that, to see that evolve.
It's interesting that it both creates distance and creates that immediate up close in your face thing, because, once you reach a certain point, social media then becomes a thing you can't use. So you have to be very selective about it because of all the intention and the intensity of it. But, at a certain point, it becomes like there is just this seamless barrier between people and how they connect, and much easier to get in contact with people. So not that I haven't, I mean, it's a fascinating experience that I don't dabble in all that much personally, because like that's Ryan, that's for you guys.
You missed it at the start of the show. T. Frank is a Drew Aller apologist and a Drew Aller hater at the same time. It's very impressive that he can wear both hats while not wearing a hat. Get today.
Congratulations. You sure it was
I
T-Frank
tried
or is
to-
that Nate? I don't know.
We don't want to psychoanalyze what Nate is. We can't do that.
Okay, let's talk about the biggest. Ryan, describe to me the size of the whiteout list. So we've heard James Franklin. We're going to hear from James Franklin here in a second about the whiteout and some of the aspects of it. You've been working on this today and over the last couple of weeks about players that are coming to this particular game. So describe to me the whiteout list and how you're viewing it this year. It's always the biggest list. It's always the best list. But how is this one shaping up in terms of the context of what you know about what you expect out of it?
The deepest ever, and I'm not even like trying to exaggerate. Like that is going to be a fact. I was going to post a story today on all the numbers, and I'm still working on that. But now I keep adding players, and it keeps adding the numbers. So I'm like, I don't know when to post this story because I just keep adding guys to it, and I want to really fully present how talented it is. I mean, right now, I'll give you a little bit of the kind of feedback on this. Like for the most part, after I went back and looked at the last 4 whiteouts, okay. For the most part, and we're just talking about juniors, so 2026, 2025, all those previous years, Penn State's averaged about 22 to 27 or so 4-star, top 300 kind of players for that junior class, right? So the seniors are already pretty much always done. So we're talking 2027 for this year. Right now, I have to update my numbers. I think I'm at 42, 43 4-star guys expected at this game from the 2027 class. And it is September 18th. There is 9 days to go. So I think it says a lot about how much emphasis they're putting in this game. There's a couple other things I'd add to that. One, like, let's not forget how much bigger or how much their recruiting staff has grown in the last couple of years, because there is kind of a trend if you look back at like 2021 to Auburn and kind of how it's gotten. They've gotten more talent there the last couple of years. It's kind of grown that way. And I do think recruiting staff has something to do with that. They're just, a well-oiled machine now, and it kind of keeps growing. I also think it's really important to note that there isn't an Ohio State big noon game that's going to compete with this list this year. So they're never all eggs in one basket kind of thing. There's going to be, a lot of talented players coming to Indiana and Nebraska, I'm sure, but there isn't, like last year, for example, Ohio State, Washington the next week, it kind of spread out the town a little bit where, it really is going to be a situation where this is going to be the most stacked list I think I've ever seen. I don't think it's going to get to 250, what James said the other day. I'd be surprised, but I'm not going to, who am I to say, I think James is fibbing a little bit. The kind of the math and what I've gathered, I think it'll be the biggest they've ever had. Normally 150-ish has kind of been the max. I think we're looking at something around 170, and I don't want to go too much higher than that, but I think,
I'd go 200. Like, I think
200 is possible.
You look at what they can do, and they're trying to, I would say, filter some of the stuff. Like, there's guys in Pennsylvania that are good players, but can go to the Indiana game or whatever, and they're not giving out as many tickets. They're not trying to have hangers on. And some guys, you want Keemon Spell to bring his best friends, even though his best friends are players too. But you want those guys to be happy. But at the same time, you have to have them understand that there's a limited range here of what you can do from a +1 perspective or a +2 perspective. And some guys are going to get pissed at that, but it's just part of the whole thing. And I thought James laid it out pretty good. It's like, we have to look at the intricacies of how you host these guys, not offend them, because some of these guys that will come in from out of state or whatever are going to have trouble getting into campus, are going to have trouble getting through traffic, and then they're going to end up late, and then it's going to be a chain reaction, and all of a sudden they're going to end up with a visit that's not as fun as they thought it would be. So you've got to set the expectations there that this is how this is going to play out, because, oh, by the way, hosting a top 5 team, and we got to win this game, because that's the important thing. So I think that's what you're looking at. And Steven makes a point here. He says, no idea if it yields commits, but it's good to get the traffic. Well, a lot of the guys that are on the roster right now were at a whiteout game, whether that be as a young prospect, whether that be as their visit as a senior or whatever. Like, this thing has staying power, and that's what you're looking at, whether it yields commits on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, the next week or whatever. remains to be seen because of, I think, the money aspect of it does make a difference. Like, is this a prime time to commit if you're a 2027 prospect? Not really. Like, that's something worth remembering. But at the same time, a lot of guys that are on that roster have, sort of hit the holy trinity of whiteout, blue-white game, flash bash. That's kind of how that works.
We actually have James Franklin talking about that from Tuesday, where he outlines some of the challenges of the whiteout, even though it is as everything these guys have just said.
So it is very, very important for our future, but it's also challenging, right? We're going to have 250 scholarship players on campus, and we're going to have 50 of the top players in the country, and we also got to make sure they have a good experience. And it's hard. It's hard to make sure that everybody gets some love and everybody gets some time on game day, So we've put out word asking people in the athletic department that could help us. So we have more hands on deck, more manpower to help us, just so that everybody has a good experience. Sometimes people underestimate. They've been to other places for game day visits. I'm not going to mention the places, but they drive right up to the stadium. They're like, it was wonderful. We just drove right up, went to the game. I said, well, you felt that when you got inside it, right? And then they get here and they're frustrated with traffic. Well, you got to leave early enough and you got to get here. And then obviously it's a good thing for our community, but the challenges with hotels and everything else.
So the part there of asking for more hands on deck, and I'm not trying to throw shade here, but like, are we talking about women's volleyball assistant director coming over and being a part of the recruiting staff? Not that like that's not an important person, but like how does that work into football recruiting? Like, is that what he's talking about? Like, how does that work? Because you can probably feel where you are on the list based on who's interacting with you.
I don't know, Sean.
I don't know. I've
been thinking about it since Tuesday. That's my problem.
It's probably a huge, and this is me speaking off the cuff based on prior years, not necessarily this year, but it's probably a huge recruiting weekend for volleyball, for basketball, for all these other sports, because you're going to look down on the field and you're going to see a ton of recruits that aren't necessarily football recruits. So like, and how do you say this? Cut those down and give more room to the football team is what they're looking for there. And it's, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, football, everybody should get a piece of the pie in the athletic department, but at the same time, the biggest piece of pie comes from the one that baked it. Right. So you're looking at that. So getting out of that ditch that I just dug myself, you're looking at everything, right? I mean, you can't get hotel rooms for these kids, but there's ways that, they can have, if they have relationships with other people, that they can stay in, decently close areas and things like that. So like, I think that they're all trying to pull the rope in one direction. And I tell you what, the most interesting part of that little, that little rant from James was, he says, we're going to have 50 of the top players from the country in the country. Like, that's not something that really happened before. Everybody's been connected. But if you look at Ryan's list, there are guys that, Penn State has been mentioned, but not really like, oh, this guy is going to end up here, or this guy is like definitely in the mix. You're pulling 5 stars from Texas that are going to come up and check this game out. So like, I think there's been an added emphasis, and maybe that's something to do with the Adidas factor. Maybe that's something to do with, how Penn State has approached this national spectacle rather than just a football game. I think that's very interesting to look at. So when you look at the list and you're going to read it, and you're going to like, I don't know this name. And then you click on his link and he's a top 50 player. Like that's the kind of thing that's very interesting to me, is how Penn State has made this and sought out the spectacle and said, hey, this is a college football keystone. This is a landmark event in college football. And I know that Alabama is playing Georgia that week. And was it LSU? Ole Miss is the other one that, the game day, whatever they're going to break down here. But this is going to be the event in college football this weekend. We want you here. We're going to, make it so that you can get here. So I think that is the biggest thing that I look at from Franklin and his recruiting staff, that they've put in a ton of work to get guys here.
Nate Bauer here in the chat. A couple of important things he says. First off, he likes the video. He's one of only 19 people at the time. 3 people have then responded and liked the video, but if we've got over 100, participation rate, guys, I mean, you're here watching the video. Like, I know you like us, so please help us out. Like the video, that always is a super helpful thing. When that number gets high, that helps us out quite a bit. And then, of course, we've joked for years here that Nate Bauer talking about recruiting is absolutely like his wheelhouse, right? Well, he's got some information for you. Basketball hosting one person for the whiteout game. So there you go. That's part of what Fitz was just talking about in terms of other school or other parts of the school hosting people for the whiteout. A little bit of recruiting tidbit there from Nate in the chat. Always appreciate our different parts. He's hosting a thing in the chat here, by the way. So Ryan, what you got?
So I was saying earlier, like, from what I was able to, again, it's not an exact science because it's kind of hard to figure out exactly who was ranked where at the time they visited, right? But I tried my best to kind of do this the other day. I came around 25 or so 4-stars was kind of the average. Right now, there's 16 top 100 players confirmed for this game.
That's
Think
60%
about that
of the top 100.
16, yeah. Hey, good math. I mean, that's a really good number. Now I'm including the 3 commits in that, but I was also including, guys who obviously went on to commit to Penn State in that 225 or so average. So I just think like I'll get this story together and share it with subscribers hopefully today. Although I got to do some work now on adding some guys to this list after this morning. But we're 170, I think, is a safe number. I could see it getting closer to Sean, what Sean's saying in 200 or so, because, the fact that I have 100, I think I'm at 114 right now. And there's 9 days to go I've never had that happen before.
I can see you as Charlie from Always Sunny with the whiteboard, just kind of going through the guys that are going here, visiting, and this guy's coming from here, and this guy plays at 1:00 on Saturday. How is he going to get from Virginia to Penn State? That's
the recruiting staff's job to figure that out. My mistake is that I have like a separate text edit document where I try to track all visits, but then there's so many of them, and I'm trying to build a list over here while keeping the list on the message board the same. And I definitely left off Xavier Hassan the other day. There's like 3 guys that I realized then I left off at one of those spots. So try to keep
and when you miss like a commit on the list, like when you miss something like that, we have folks that we have a couple thousand editors that let us know. But on top of that, if you miss somebody, like you're going to miss like a top 100 guy, like, and it's going to be like, this guy would be the focal point of the Villanova weekend or the Nevada weekend or something like that. And then all of a sudden it's just like another guy this weekend. And I don't mean to just say another guy, but like that's how strong the list is.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, Xavier Hassan is a really good cornerback from North Carolina. He's like 55 in the whole country. And like, that was the one I forgot, so it's similar to what you're saying to some degree.
Brett says,
to answer your question, I mean, yeah, there's going to be guys there.
So let me just read it for the podcast audience.
Go ahead.
Fitz and Ryan, do you know if any possible flips from 26 are coming to the game? You've talked about this, that if there are, they're going to be announced much later. They'll come out like next week, right? Like that's the timeline for when there's going to be
6:00 on Saturday. Here's the reality of the situation is, right now, I don't know. We know Carter Gooden, right? Obviously he's kind of committed to UCLA. We'll see. Josiah Teasley's another one who's committed to Virginia right now, doesn't have an offer from Penn State, wide receiver, camped to Penn State twice this year, good player. And Emmanuel Nacho is going to be there too, committed to Oregon right now. Obviously they're playing Oregon. I think he's going to get so much money that's not really going to be something we're going to talk about. There's going to be other guys who are there for sure. I say this all the time to fans, and especially in the last couple of years, we really learned, like, right now, I don't know. But even if I do learn of guys on Tuesday or Wednesday, I don't know that you want me putting it out there, because that's usually how it then gets snipped and then cut out. Because you don't want, they're trying to flip someone from Ohio State or, North Carolina, whatever it may be. That's how then, once that becomes public, these schools are going to do everything they can to keep that visit from happening. So it's kind of, you just got to walk this line, right? Like if a player is putting it out there publicly, absolutely, we're going to talk about it. But at the same time, from a Penn State perspective, from a fan perspective, if you guys want these situations to happen, I think you want to keep them as quiet as you can until 6:00 on Saturday.
Yeah, and that's where, there's a fine line between I really want to know and I really want it to happen, as you just laid out there, right?
My job is to promote it and blast it everywhere, right? Like that's what we get paid to do. But I'm running the risk of pissing off quite a few people if I do that.
Did that last year, didn't we?
It's happened many times. While also then, you're running the risk of, Penn State then getting kind of scooped out for a player that they were trending with. And, because it became public, then school X, school Y, school Z, whomever it may be, shoots that visit down. I'm
taking Ryan's back on this. That's not just a narrative. Like, that's not just a, hey, like we're trying to, or it's not just a, we don't know, so we're going to say that. That's actually how it happens, because Penn State stomps out those visits too. I mean, you look at some of the guys that they've signed in their classes that maybe have popped up for potential late visits, and they find out, and they go on the offensive there, and that's all these things work. So
new strategy. New strategy for Penn State fans of what they'll want you to do. Ryan, you are now actively trying to find Penn State recruits going to other schools, and you can announce those ones.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Either way, I mean, like, again, I don't want to come off as we're, just I'm out of the loop or whatever it is. I mean, there will probably be a couple guys we learn about next week, but depending on who they are and if that player is putting it out publicly, you got to walk this fine line right now, because it's, especially with this 2026 class, they are still trying to add guys, certainly top talented guys. All to circle back, yes, I absolutely expect some talented players who will learn about early, an hour or so before the game. But right now, those are the three I mentioned already.
So let's talk about what's happening now in the next couple of days. Coaches are going to go on the road for the bye week to do some recruiting. Ryan, has this changed in recent years, and what is your read of how they're treating this bye week from the reaching out to prospects and commits for this kind of important check-in during the season? How is this going this year from what you understand? Some
changes, yeah. I think the most important change we have to discuss is the fact that coaches used to be able to have what was called 42 countable days, which is basically for every coach that hits the road, that's a countable day. And you can go pretty much wherever you want during that day. They usually find a city and hit up as many schools in that region. Long story short, that's now 33. So those days have been reduced. Coaches wanted that. That was something that they want less time out on the road, just because it's less time or more time on the road, less time with your team. That was always kind of a struggle for, a decade or so. Because of that reduction, we used to always see James going out on Friday nights, in recent years. And even last year they did that. I think what Penn State learned last year is that because of, less days now, they can really kind of condense their 10 countable coaches into the 2 bye weeks. And that's the other good part of this, or part I need to mention, is Penn State's had 2 bye weeks the last 2 years. We'll see about, how that shapes up moving forward. But the fact that they have 2 bye weeks, you can really kind of condense that to some degree. You add in a couple Mondays. We saw James out in Pittsburgh. He was with Terry Smith. So those are 2 countable days. Today, James and Terry are in Philadelphia region. So those are 2 more countable days. So, we're going to see a bunch of assistants on the road this weekend. Many of those visits will be to check up on the guys who are already committed. I expect, for example, I think Appo has a game tomorrow night. I expect maybe Deion Barnes or James, somebody to be down there, to see Leighton Von Brandt play, and just see Rogers. You'll see a lot of those, a lot of these visits focused on the commits more than anything. But there's also a lot of guys who, are in a specific region of a committed player that they're going to check up on, especially 2027s. They can't really they can't really have any conversations with 27s and 28s. Actually, they can't really with 26s either. But what you're seeing is, a Matt Sieg, for example, David Davis, when they were out in Pittsburgh the other day, you saw photos of them, posing. They're all paid except. So that's kind of to kind of explain that situation. They've already been paid, accepted into Penn State. And when that happens, you can pretty much have unlimited conversation with those guys in person, or not.
So that is there.
Anything I missed?
Yeah. In the spring, like, you can go out and it's a different kind of period.
Correct.
So you can go out and you see guys getting pictures with coaches and things like that. In the fall, it's a little bit different. You're supposed to be completely hands off and, show up in the helicopter and, nobody sees you or whatever. But no, that's how it works in the fall. So he'll get out to a bunch of different schools and they'll chunk it up, right? They did Pittsburgh earlier this week, doing Philly now. You've got an opportunity to see a bunch of schools and a bunch of places that you can spend a little more time with, rather than going out on a Friday before a game and just, hitting certain little pockets of spots. So I think it's kind of the right call. And then they'll branch out and they'll go see bigger, I don't want to say bigger targets, but they'll see more concentrated targets actually play. Like Tavian Branch plays tonight. They're going to see guys play on Friday and Saturday, and then they'll come back into town and get going again.
Here's James Franklin talking about this from Tuesday.
Yeah, so we'll watch the film tonight, do some recruiting calls. Tomorrow, obviously, we practice again. I think tomorrow night I go out, and then I'll be out all day Thursday. We'll have a coordinators practice like we have had in the past on Thursday, and any of the coaches that are not on the road. And then Friday we'll all be out recruiting. The players will, after their academic responsibilities, be off. Recruit all day Friday, go to some games Friday night, and then do the same thing Saturday. And then players will be off Saturday, and then we'll get back sometime Saturday night, and then Sunday's game week.
Any other thoughts here on coaches being on the road, the importance of this, and the impact it has before we move on to the last segment we have here for the show? Any other thoughts here?
The one thing I should have said with that, which Sean pretty much clarified, is this is an evaluation period, right? So it's not a contact period. So those are the two big differences between what you see now, what you'll see even in, I think May is now a contact period too, as well as January.
And there's no in-home, like he's not going to go to Joey O'Brien's house and talk to him or school or talk to him.
Correct. Now, just the one thing I will clarify though with that is they can do in-home visits with the paid accept commits. So just so if you do see that and then you're like, well, wait, Sean said they can't do in-homes. Any of the commits who have paid and already been accepted into Penn State, they can do that with, because they can have unlimited contact, like I said, in person or out. So just to clarify that, if you see a tweet or two of an in-home visit this weekend.
And the underlying thing here, when James is out shaking hands, kissing babies and all that stuff, he's building up the people around the prospect to help him, basically, right? Mm-hmm. You're thinking of the Penn State grad that is now the kid's sixth period teacher. You know, you've got different options for, hey, we go to the coach, go to the family, go to the kid, whatever. But if you can build up the community around him and get that sort of in his corner, that helps. Like, it's not going to put him over the top. It's not going to make a kid pick Penn State, but the more comfortable you feel around the people that care about you most, hey, it matters. So these things are being seen. These things are taking pictures with whoever comes up to ask you to take a picture. And it's just kind of part of the process now. And, you know, a lot of it has gone to the money aspect of it. And, you know, people think it's highest bidder and things like that. Sometimes these bids are so close that the people aspect still really puts it over the top. So that's what you're looking for if you're Penn State. And, oh, by the way, like, last bid usually, I don't want to say all the time, but usually is going to make the difference rather than the June bid. And that's kind of what we've been talking about this entire time, even though it's been hard to digest if you're a Penn State fan.
Yeah, makes sense. And just to tie in the things that you've been saying, and we haven't really talked specifically, like a segment on the show, about the Adidas deal and how it reacts to all this stuff, but that kind of feels like that's where that fits in, of you need to be in the ballpark so that the relationships and everything else, they all are the deciding factor instead of the money. And certain things, as Ryan has pointed out, you're not going to outbid certain people because that's just not in the best interest or the model of the program. But as long as you're in the conversation in all of these different areas, then you have the opportunity for all of Penn State's strengths to then manifest themselves in that final decision. And I think, you know, just as a final kind of thought on this, is that something we may see in the next couple of months, or is that a 2027 impact that you think we're going to see, where all these numbers for 26, because of everything we've discussed for the last 3 months, have all kind of settled in, and those are more decided than maybe something in the future? Do you have a sense of any of that, Ryan?
I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that, honestly. Can you say that again?
Yeah. So, talking about being in the conversation with the monetary side of things, is this Adidas deal going to be more of the conversation for 27? Because I think fans think that, okay, the deal is announced and now there's cash to throw around. And so in December, Joey O'Brien's coming here, Grayson McHugh's coming here, Dorian Barney, they're like all the guys they missed. Now it's like back on the table. I guess I'm trying to get a sense of read of those.
I got what you're saying now, but
Yeah.
It's hard to, you know what I mean, Sean? Like, I don't know how to really answer because I don't know the details of the Adidas deal. I don't know the details of how much their collective have. I don't know what's coming off, what's going on. You know what I mean? It's just kind of hard to say. We'll find out. Right. I think that's, am I wrong with that, Sean? I want to give a better answer. I just don't know how to.
It's just hard to accept the we'll find out part of it. It's just, it's like football part. It's like, we'll find out what Penn State looks like next Saturday. And then it's like, well, I'd like to know now.
It's been about a month since I asked a version of that question, and so contract once a month. I gotta ask.
It's just hard to say, man. I mean, we'll find out. I don't know how much of that deal is really gonna have an impact. I know that, but it's just kind of until you kind of see or able to learn or even ask about it a little bit and trying to figure out the details. It's just kind of I don't want to pretend like that's going to solve all the issues.
Right. And they're still a Nike school until next June, July, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're funneling money into it now. Now, I think the difference there is that you can say, oh, we're going to have more money and we can promise that. And not every coach is particularly comfortable with that, but you feel like you can have a bigger push behind it. And I think that's the bigger thing is that you can, I don't want to say be more aggressive because that'll probably be taken out of context, but you can be more confident in what you are going to be able to do from a monetary standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the deal is announced, and this is just kind of the way of the world now. Is the deal was announced, and so now it's like, well, where's the impact? The impact has to happen because the thing was said, and then we wait around for the end of the story, and then as things actually work in the real world, not online, there isn't this immediate feedback and all these things. It takes some time. So I think it's just good for fans to just get another update of, hey, we'll see. And we've got to see how this plays out because, again, the point of NIL is that there is obscurity in the details. They don't want the information to get out. They don't want this information to be public for their opponents or so that, they lose whatever advantage they may gain from it. So it is becoming, I think, more and more when we talk about these things, not that it wasn't cloak and dagger before, but this is all very important to them.
Yeah, and on the flip side of what Ryan said earlier about, Penn State doesn't want these guys doesn't want the names of the guys that are potential flip targets showing for that reason. And also because a school can come and stomp out, maybe up their bid or whatever. The kid also is probably terrified of getting found out, right? That is another thing that goes into it is you've got guys that have deals that are done, not necessarily like signed and already getting payment and everything like that. But you've got guys that feel like they're in a spot, feel like their parents have gotten them into a spot, their agents or whatever have gotten to a spot. And then all of a sudden it's like, actually, I am kind of interested in seeing what Penn State has to say or this other school has to say. So I think that plays into it as well. It's a bunch of secrecy and I think it's for a pretty good reason because it's a kid's future. But that's what goes into, especially a question of how many flip guys are going to be or 2026 flip guys are going to be at the whiteout.
Yep. Ryan, I know you know the answer to this because I took this information directly from an article you wrote over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. Last thing is our On3 rankings update and where Penn State's class of 2026 has moved now that there is some senior film, and we've seen a little bit of what these guys are going to be in their senior season. Not the final update, obviously. So where is this class on track, Ryan? What is the information we need to know about where Kevin Brown, Jasiah Rogers, all of the top stars in this class? Do you know, give us the rundown of where they are in the latest update?
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, there wasn't a whole lot of change with this last update. I think Tyson Harley was up, 30-some spots, I believe it was. Aside from that, it was a bunch of guys who were kind of, down a couple spots or up a couple spots. I think the big thing, I'll keep coming back to is there's some guys at the bottom of Penn State's class, Daryl Carey, for example, who was injured a little bit. Those are the guys that I think to keep an eye on long term, as far as the big movers who could potentially, actually impact Penn State's team ranking, which I believe is still at 16 in the country, 5th in the Big Ten. But yeah, Tyson Harley up 39 spots, Kevin Brown up 2 spots. Everybody else was kind of down 7 to 15 spots, something like that. And I think they added 20 plus 30 or 25 plus players. So, a handful of, those spots of guys moving down is really just guys kind of moving up. So
and Ryan, on top of that, we got these, I completely missed them last week, but we got these rankings at the end of last week. So they were done before this past week. Mm-hmm. Northeast kids have played 2 games, maybe 1 or 2 games. Jasiah Rogers played 1 game before these rankings came out. They haven't been looked at yet. They haven't, this has not been a part of the evaluation yet. So that's why you're seeing the majority of Penn State's guys in this region not moving, but also dropping just a little bit.
It's like that March, or it's like that they update in like maybe like early April or something like that. You know, because like there's a bunch of camp down south.
Yeah.
So it's kind of similar to that, but yeah, I mean, they 8 guys in the top 300 or so. I mean, really, at the end of the day, as T. Frank, we've talked about before, like it's the lack of top 100 talent that I think is keeping this class from. It's not going to be top 10. Obviously, it's 16 in the country now, but
that comfortable 12 spot, right? Like 12 to 13, I feel like is the wheelhouse for where Penn State has been consistently. If they get down near 16, 17, that feels like when it feels like it's a little bit out of character for the class.
Yeah, and I'll keep coming back to, though, like, I mean, there's Daryl Carey, there's a couple guys in this class. I mean, LeVar Key's actually had a big jump. I think he jumped 35 spots or somewhere in that ballpark, a little over 30 at the receiver position. Like, he was outside the top 100. Now he's like 72. You know, Troy Hume moved up to a higher 3-star. You know, those are all little things I know. But, I mean, at the same time, there's a couple guys here that I think could, you know, whether it's a 4-star at Rivals or a 4-star at 24/7, you know, obviously the industry rankings determine the team rankings for us, that I do see that there could be some movement and positivity for Penn State towards the end here. But obviously we got to see how this film goes and see how our scouts evaluate him. I still circled Daryl Carey as one of the most underrated players in this class and really in the whole country, honestly.
Is the next update the final update? Because it'll be
in
a couple of months,
we'll do one
right
before, I think in end of November, kind of end of high school season. And then obviously they do one after the Under Armour All-American game, Navy All-American game, all those kind of, you know, big bowls, you know, to obviously that's a lesser impact on the lower ranked guys and really just kind of a final eval on those top 100, 200 so players.
And just as one final part of this conversation, as Fitz pointed out at the beginning of the show, this is Chaz Coleman Day, where Penn State offered Chaz Coleman a year ago. So a guy that was not high in the on three or Rivals rankings at the time. They were on 3 rankings at the time, which is why my slip is fine.
Like on the radar. I think Ole Miss was his only Power 4 offer at that point. You know, Youngstown State had an offer for him, and I think Joe Moorhead offered him in Akron. Like it was out of complete nowhere. And that doesn't happen all that often, but it does happen. And I can't wait to find the next guy like that. I'd love to discover him myself, but it's probably not going to happen.
Well, that's why Hardy made a great hire, though. You know, he never played defensive end until his final year. And then I had a long conversation with people about it. Like he never once played defensive end, just played quarterback the whole time. And obviously he doesn't have like a quarterback arm for that level. And this coach gets in and he's like, wait, you've never tried rushing off the edge? Like he was dumbfounded that this never happened. And then they throw him out there and he looks like, you know, whatever you want to call him.
Give me a kid they offer as a senior over a kid they offer as a frashman every time. I mean, you're looking at growth charts and he's off those charts. So it's pretty crazy. So
last thing, so we're getting out of here. Final thoughts here on the show. Ryan, I know you're burning down the whiteout list, so I want to go Fitz. What are you thinking of, or what are you looking at this weekend or into next week that you think is vital for Penn State football fans when it comes to recruiting, to kind of keep them updated on what we're gonna be talking about next week?
First off, follow all of Ryan's stuff. He's doing an amazing job of keeping everyone abreast of all this stuff. Second, breathe. Like this is a bye week. Breathe. The game will happen. Whether you want it to be tomorrow, whether you want it to be next Saturday, breathe, enjoy the bye week, enjoy yourself, and read our stuff while you're doing it. I would really appreciate that.
Yeah, I might even try and make a coffee table this weekend. That might be something I do. Hopefully you guys get away is all I'm saying. That'll do it for today's show.
Maybe you can live stream that instead of the post-game show.
We'll call it, oh no, that wasn't supposed to happen with T. Frank in the woodshed, in the wood office. In the wood office, in the garage, you know.
I would stay clear of wood office. Yes.
I gotta go, guys. I'm very
bye,
busy.
guys.
Goodbye.
Bye. Let's get out of here. We'll talk to you later here on the BWI Live Show.